From the heartland of America and the gateway to the West, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm George Norrie. This is Coast to Coast AM. Later tonight, the Dream World and Mystery Schools. Here's what's happening. What a strange story. A CIA whistleblower has told Congress that the agency offered officials on a team investigating the COVID-19 origins significant monetary incentives to change their positions from that it originated out of a leak from the Wuhan lab in China to unable to determine where it came from. Why would they do that? That's weird. A medicine used by millions of Americans for a stuffy nose does not work, according to a Food and Drug Administration panel ruling today. Phenylephrine is the most common active compound in over-the-counter drugs like Benadryl, Allergy Plus Congestion, Sudafed, Tylenol, and flu severe day and night symptoms. But an FDA panel said after a 2-day review, the oral decongestant is not effective at standard or even high doses compared to a placebo. How about that? House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has announced he is calling on his committees to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden, even as they have yet to prove allegations he directly profited off his son's foreign business deals. Dr. John Curtis, onlinecolumnist.com, with us here. John, are we going to have to go through another impeachment proceeding?
Well, it looks that way, doesn't it?
Oh, my gosh.
You know, the thing that is so troubling about this is that it's okay for Democrats and the media to launch the impeachment of Donald Trump without any questions. And everybody wants proof for the one with Joe Biden right off the bat before the inquiry even starts. Can you imagine that? Trump had a phone call with Volodymyr Zelensky way back when. George, think about this. And what did he ask him about? Joe and Hunter Biden. And what is the basis right now of the impeachment of Biden? It's the fact that Joe and Hunter Biden were engaged in the most corrupt, unethical, and behavior that potentially accepted bribes, made millions and millions of dollars. We're talking about upwards of $30, $40, $50 million.
And this was when he was vice president, right?
When he was vice president, with China, with Ukraine, with Kazakhstan, with Russia. You just go down this list. But when it comes to Democrats and the media, they want absolute proof, and they're saying right now, well, we haven't seen anything yet. Well, guess what? You know, the investigation is starting as of today, and they have mounted a lot of evidence that connects Hunter and Joe in a family pay-to-play business going off at the time, Vice President Joe Biden's contacts with foreign governments.
I got to tell you, John, this 2024 election is going to be bizarre, to be sure. But thanks for your report. John's website, onlinecolumnist.com. He's got a couple books, by the way, Dodging the Bullet and Operation Charisma. More than 2,000 people were killed and at least 10,000 missing in Libya in floods caused by a huge Mediterranean storm that burst dams, swept away buildings, wiped out as much as a quarter of the eastern coastal city of Derna. It's official. The iPhone 15 will soon become available with a starting price of $799. Apple gave consumers the official introduction to the device. It came after rumors and speculation about what new features and tech the latest versions of iPhone would have circulated for months in anticipation. With the new iPhone 15, users will receive what is called Dynamic Island, a 48-megapixel primary camera, and other features on that. Markets hate uncertainty, and there's lots of it this fall. The United Auto Workers Union may strike on Friday. The federal government is heading toward another potential shutdown in October. Geopolitical tensions with China remain heightened, and oil prices could stay elevated through December. There's also the looming question about whether the Federal Reserve will continue to hike interest rates again. Catherine Austin Fitz is with us here. Catherine, this is not a good feeling about this.
Well, George, we're in a reset. So the going direct reset started in August 2019, and we saw the Fed inject unprecedented amounts of money directly into the economy, something really never been done before to that extent. And if you look at the monetary policy they just met in Jackson Hole, and they're talking about monetizing the government debt, the deficit's up to $2 trillion. So we have unprecedented monetary policy. And, of course, I believe the Fed will do whatever they have to do to protect the dollar. So whether they bump the interest rates this time or wait till next time, it's difficult to say. It depends on, sort of what they see about inflation coming into the meeting. But I think the Fed's playing hardball, and I think they're going to continue to play hardball, and it's going to be tough for everybody, whether they're losing purchasing power through inflation or interest rates stay high.
And, Catherine, they're saying the average American's buying power continues to dwindle. Are you feeling that out there?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody is. It's a global phenomenon, and I think they've felt tremendous inflation ever since the going direct reset started, but I think it's far from over.
Okay, thank you so much. Catherine Austin Fitts, she does a great job for us. A theologian claims archaeological finds in Jordan are proof that the biblical city of Sodom really existed. Scientists previously found evidence that the ancient city of Talahaman in the southern Jordan Valley was destroyed in a catastrophic event. Listen to what he says, though. Dr. John Bersma, professor of theology at Ohio's Franciscan University, suggests that such an event mirrors what is in the Bible and that it could have been an atomic explosion that wiped out Sodom. Interesting, isn't it? Up next, Julie Ryder with us. We're going to be talking about Montana megaliths, strange structures in Montana. What does it all mean? She's next on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you. Our guest for the next couple hours, Julie Ryder with us, archaeologist, passionate about unraveling the mysteries of megalithic structures worldwide. Many professional archaeologists back her groundbreaking research into the megaliths of Montana. She's got a couple books out, including Montana Megaliths, Dolmens in Montana, USA, and Montana Megaliths in the USA. Julie, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I've been listening to Coast for many years now.
Well, it's great to have you on the show, and you sent us some great pictures. How did you discover these monster rock formations?
Years ago, I was taken into I hear an echo.
Yeah, we're hearing you okay.
Okay. Years ago, I was taken into Indian country.
Yeah, Tommy said move your cell phone away from the Zoom area that you're in.
Okay.
You do that, and then pop back on here, and let's get rolling here.
So years ago, I was taken into Indian country, and I was taken into the head man of the Navajo, and in 1999, he gathered the elders from the entire world, the Incas, the Aztecs, the Mayans, and the Samis, to do ceremonies. We were taken to these ceremonies, and they taught us about the pictographs, which were about quantum physics, astrophysics, genetic engineering. Years later, he came here to Montana, and he read the glyphs on a shaman rock and told us about the ancient cities that were in this area. He instructed me to find them and to take this knowledge to the world so it didn't pass away when he passed over. In the summer of 2012, I walked into the wilderness and found the Boulder Dolmen, a very large dolmen, one of 28 that we discovered in the first few years. We've discovered 48 so far. My husband, Bill Ryder, discovered Giant's Playground because he saw daylight coming through a tunnel. On Valentine's Day of 2015, Bill told me that for my gift, he was giving me a dolmen. He took me there, and we explored the area. We found large stacked blocks, and so we named it Giant's Playground. I spent the summer photographing several dolmens and very unusual features. I posted these on my Facebook and my Galactic Facets website. We found large stacked blocks, we found dolmens, we found huge statues. And the more I posted, the more people from around the world responded, teaching me about what this was. I'm a registered nurse, not an archaeologist. So I've learned everything from watching videos, from talking with people in 72 languages all over the world who feed me back similar structures in the countries that they have. These were created by a worldwide ancient civilization.
Julie, why did it take so long for someone like yourself to discover these megaliths?
I've asked that question hundreds of times. I've discovered 111 different sites. They've been verified by satellite deep geoscan. 85% are still under the surface. Since I have found them and published them, they're being found all over America. People are understanding what they're looking at. It's like I found a 113-foot-long Tyrannosaurus Rex above ground that people had never seen. But when I pointed out to them, they see it immediately. Even a woman that lived at the base of it her whole life had never noticed it until I pointed it out to her.
That's amazing. We've got some incredible pictures that you sent to us, Julie, on the coasttocoastam.com website. Folks, you get a minute, take a look at these structures. How do you think they move them? I mean, they're as big as Stonehenge, maybe even bigger.
They're even bigger. In fact, I was invited into Russia with the head documentary maker of the country of Russia about megalithic sites. He was going to take me to Gorna Shoria. And that couldn't happen because the Russian government classified everything. And I wasn't going to go to Russia during these tumultuous times. And so he taught me how to look at and see these huge megalithic structures. He talked about the walls. We have found walls that are almost as large as the ones in Gorna Shoria. But the real evidence came when Andrew Barker came on board. He found me on the internet, and we talked for about 3 months. He was a very interesting man, very funny, very intelligent. And finally one day he says, I own the most advanced technology in the world in this field, satellite deep geoscans. If you give me one site, the GPS coordinates, I'll do a scan for you for free. I want to know what's under the Evergreen Dolmen in Giants Playground. And so I sent him GPS coordinates, and he came back with the comment, I'm bringing the entire team. I said, how about if you wait until spring, because it's under snow right now. In the meantime, I gave him 40 more coordinates. They did a Skype presentation, his team. A man they called a professor, developed the technology and does the reporting. They reported that we had pyramids, pointed, conical, step, truncated, that we had the largest standing stone constructed block in the entire world at that time, 5,300 tons, and it's made out of stone that's not from the area. We had the tallest dolmen in the world, Evergreen Dolmen, and the largest dolmen in the world, which is on top of a circular stone terrace that's just absolutely huge. You can only see it from Google Earth. We've had a number of people try to climb it, and the walls are so sheer they can't get up to the top of it.
Wow.
That's all right here in Montana. There are miles and miles and miles of ancient structures.
I would guess, Julie, you can't carbon date these, but any idea how old they might be?
The underground penetrating radar. They found 82 rooms under Egypt, larger than supermarkets, many of them full of artifacts. And based on their geoscans around Europe, the oceans, Mediterranean Sea, their estimate was what's above ground in Giants Playground is over 72,000 years old.
Wow.
That they can prove. Andrew Barker says, we believe it's much older than that, but we can prove 72,000, so that's the number we're going with.
Do you think they were constructed by Native Americans, or who might have done this?
My belief at the moment, subject to change, is that they were constructed by several epochs of a worldwide civilization that was destroyed by different cataclysmic events. According to my Native American teachers, according to the Buddhists that come here, we've had 2 Rinpoches come here. They tell the stories of floods and asteroids and pole shifts that changed the world, and therefore they build over top. The difference here is that Andrew Barker states that here they're built on platforms, and they go deep underground. And the deeper they go, the more sophisticated the technology, the larger the blocks. It was hit by an asteroid 12,800 years ago and covered over with mud and dirt and scree and trees.
Jeez.
And no one recognized what they were until I came along.
Good job, by the way, Julie. It's fascinating.
Thank you. It's been exciting. It's been 11 years of my life dedicated to this.
What do you think the purpose of the megaliths might be? Just for show, or was there a reason they had them?
There's many different types of megaliths here. So let's talk about the building structures. I believe they came here to mine gold, because this is one of the richest areas of gold in the world.
Okay.
It's on the headwaters of a major river system. There are pink granite, which has been used from Aswan Quarry and Giza to build the pyramids. And so, for some reason, this pink granite is important. We don't know why yet, but we have found pink granite geopolymer covering these dolomites, covering these megalithic sites. So they were some type of a power plant, an energy from a technology we don't understand. But I believe they mined gold. They built huge, like hydroelectric structures. Later, there were artifacts added, such as a Beno bird. We have 2 Buddhas. We have artifacts that have been tucked in between the walls of the building, mostly on the outside. So as the world became more and more, quote, religious, these artifacts were added to the main structures, which I believe were technological plants. That's my theory at the moment.
Are these structures, Julie, relatively close to each other out there in Montana?
So Giant's Playground is about 8 square blocks. It's the major site.
That's pretty good size.
Dome of the world. What?
That's a good size, 8 square blocks.
Yes, but it's one of the. Okay. It's just one section across the river from it. Across the road from it, which used to be a river. There's a whole other complex, and above that, there's a humongous complex. So Giant's Playground is like one island, and in that one place, there is the tallest dome in the world, 2 different statues of Buddhas from 2 different yugas, 2 different epochs of time. There's an Egyptian Beno bird, a map of Pangea on a pink wall. There's square structures, rectangular structures with quarters in between. That's one site.
What are the possibilities, Julie, that these were constructed by extraterrestrial beings? What do you think?
Well, since you asked me that question, when I went into the Navajo, I was taught a lot about what they call the star nations. The star nations are the 3-fingered ones, the 4-fingered ones, the 5-fingered ones, the 6-fingered ones. And how I was introduced to Leon Secatero was we went into the desert, and there was a glyph of a 5-fingered one, and then on the other side there was like 3, 4, 6. So he told us to put our left hand on the 5-fingered one and our right hand on whichever star nation we chose to work with. And I put my hands on all of them. And it's like I just received this blast of knowledge. And I sat down and started drawing pictographs in the sand. And Leon came to me and looked and said, "You're the one we've dreamed of. Come with me." Much of the teachings were about the technology of the star people, astrophysics, genetic engineering. That's what we learned about. And then when he came here to Montana, we took him to a shaman rock. As he touched the rock and read the glyphs, he started talking about the cities of light that would be here. He started talking about the megalithic cities around us and the star nations that had built them. So yes, I also discovered a few freestanding, flash fossilized ET heads talking to a human. It's like a tall gray. I've discovered Zeta Reticuli images in the stone. So I truly believe that these were built by the star nations and by series of advanced humans.
That's amazing. That's really incredible. I mean, we may have actual proof in Montana of extraterrestrial beings that have come down to our planet, helped construct these megalithic structures, and then they probably took off when the catastrophes occurred, don't you think?
No, I don't. I think they stuck around.
Really?
Yes, I do.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, Julie. Hold on for a sec. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back and talk more about that. Julie Ryder's with us. Her website is linked up at coasttocoastam.com. She's going to be attending the 5th Global Pyramid Conference coming up in September this month, in a couple weeks. She'll tell you about that, too. Maybe you want to go to it. And welcome back to Coast to Coast. George Norrie with Julie Ryder. We're going to take calls with Julie next hour here as we're talking about the Montana megaliths. Julie, we're talking about the possibility of an ET presence. And so you think they may have just stayed here. What do you think happened to them? Did they get involved in the catastrophes that occurred?
I believe that I was taught by the Native Americans, by the Buddhists. There's been two different Rinpoches here who taught almost the same thing, which is there was a series of cataclysmic events where the Earth's civilizations were destroyed and then built over top. Andrew Barker, the man that did the satellite deep geoscans, said the most unusual thing about Montana is that everything is built on platforms. In other words, the dolmens are the tallest dolmen in the world is Evergreen Dolmen at Giants Playground. It's 83 feet high, 83 feet above ground level, built on a series of platforms that goes deep underground. So I believe through different events, earthquakes, floods, pole shifts, that what was built was destroyed and then built over top, over top, over top, over top, over top. Andrew Barker says that 12,800 years ago, an asteroid hit North America. And I believe that Randall Carlson and Graham talk a lot about that, and that it destroyed the civilization that was here and that covered over. And so what we're finding is that what is above ground are only markers for what goes deep, deep underground. There are two chambers under Giants Playground, circular chambers, artifacts intact. I've seen the scans. And there are many chambers underground across the landscape with some are covered completely over. Some have huge cyclopean blocks, towers over top of them that are remnants from the last civilization. And we have an extreme variety of repairs. You can see where, particularly the side of Mystery Rock Prime, has multiple different types of construction along the walls. They've cemented them up. They've put wedges in there and different types of granite, completely different types of granite in each section. So it's been repaired, built over top through multiple epochs of time.
Truly remarkable. Tell us about the so-called amphitheater. What was its purpose?
Yeah, there are many of them. As we start down the gates of the mountain, which is a boat trip down the Missouri River, there's a huge amphitheater, which is a circular, almost the same dimensions as what they call a parabolic mirror, which bounces off sound. Mm-hmm. And in the middle of this, there's a statue coming up with a king of Sumerian head on a statue right in the center of this amphitheater. It's so exact. You can see his eyes, you can see his beard, you can see his crown, a stone Sumerian king in the center of an amphitheater as you enter Giants Playground. There's a huge one called Eagle Mount Amphitheater. How I found this was I was looking at Google Earth. I've discovered what I call geosculptures. Looking down from Google Earth, there are faces in the landscape. I'm looking at Google Earth and I see this huge eagle head, 96 square miles, looking over its right shoulder. And I thought, I know where that is. The eye of that is Hogback Mountain. So I jump in my little car and I go driving up there. And all of a sudden, an eagle comes over the car. I step out to look at the eagle, where it's going. I look up, and there's a mountain that's carved into an eagle. There's 150 stories high. That's 1,500 feet. Okay, a perfect eagle with the wings spread. The wings form an amphitheater. On the side of the head, you can see it through binoculars and through a drone, is a statue of Tartessia, the last queen of Atlantis, exactly like was found under Spain. She's called the Lady of Elche. She was found in 1897, underground in Spain. That same statue, that same image, is on the top of the eagle's head, facing south, and below her is a male face that is so exact you can see the part in his hair. You can see his pupils of his eye. This is 1,500 feet in the air. What makes this an amphitheater are the wings of the eagle, which form a perfect parabolic mirror. When Miguel Angel Verquez was here, he's a Mayan shaman, and he was here for a week. He brought a conch shell, and when he measured and measured it, he stood in the exact right place. When he blew the shell, it echoed 7 times. When he moved 10 feet, you hardly heard it. So there's certain sounds, certain tones that bounce off against certain portions of this wall that create echoes. We found a number of these in the Montana megaliths.
Could they be listening devices?
I think they're listening and broadcast devices, both. We learned a lot about the Tibetan Rinpoche that came. He came 6 or 7 times. He talked about acoustic levitation. He talked a lot about acoustic forming light bodies with acoustic sound frequencies. When we sing certain mantras or certain songs, these beautiful orbs show that are striped. They're like different colors, like a digital code. I call them barcode orbs. They respond to the sound frequencies of the different sacred songs, of the different tones. There's a lot about acoustics we're just beginning to understand.
Who owns the land now where the megaliths are?
These megaliths are on 4 different national forests. Actually, it was 7 that became 4. 5 wilderness areas, BLM land, private land, recreation areas. They're all over. They're huge. Like I said, there's 111 different sites. And in the Helena area, they're within about 70 miles of Helena. But then we found some north. We found them in Wyoming. They're all over. You just have to understand what you're looking at.
Are there any pyramids, Julie?
Yes, we have pyramids, pointed, step, conical, truncated, and what they call a pre-pyramid, which is when they put a pyramid shaped on top of the mountain and then dig down into it. There's an extraordinary one. We have found that there's a huge geodesic dome next to it, which looks like the Death Star from Star Wars.
Yeah, okay.
It also looks like the 2 moons of Saturn. Iapetus and Minimus, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. However, there's a huge geodesic dome. There's a 6-pointed star that has a staircase on the side. Looks like a giant staircase that moves up the side of the mountain to a pyramid on top. I believe that was a starship that seeded the humans here on planet Earth.
The late Zecharia Sitchin, are you familiar with his name and his work?
I've read all of his books many times.
Okay, so you know who he is. And he talked about the Anunnaki coming here, seeding us. Do you think that's still a distinct possibility?
I think that's a probability because we have found several Anunnaki-type statues. We have a statue of Inanna. She's got the 3-horn crown. You can see the features in her face. She's pregnant, and she comes all the way down the side of a mountain. Above her looks like a dragon sphinx, a long sphinx above her. We have found a number of Sumerian heads. We have found a Nergal, which is a Sumerian king that's got the face of a king and the body of a bull. We found 3 of those. We have found most of the faces are male, beards, look exactly like the Anunnaki kings.
That is amazing. Now,
However,
go ahead.
However, we have also found, I found 2 statues of Hanuman, which is the monkey god from India. We have 2 statues of Tartessia, the last queen of Atlantis. There are icons here of most major religious cultures. We have an Olmec head. Looking down from Google Earth, 1 square mile. A geosculpture of a perfect Olmec head that looks like La Venta.
Do you believe there's a distinct relationship with Egypt?
Oh, yes. In fact, we have a Benobird, and a prominent Egyptian archaeologist wrote a proposal to be the one that dug it up before he found out it was in Montana.
That is dramatic. It truly is. Now, what are the plans to protect these megaliths so they don't get desecrated?
Well, this is the issue. The Rio Tinto mines, a huge mining conglomerate, signed an agreement with the Department of Interior to mine minerals in the Boulder Batholith, which is where Giants Playground is located, and several other huge sites. Okay. We were denied a guide permit for the Dearborn Forest because they had found 2 archaeology digs very recently. which means they built a $6 million road improvement into one of the sites directly from Giants Playground to the nearest highway, I-90. So we know they've got plans to start digging this up. Dr. Sam Osmanovich from Bosnia was here last fall, and right before he arrived, they did a prescribed burn around Giants Playground, attempting to burn it, which we stopped thanks to all the people out there who notified the Forest Service through email, through fax, through phone calls, not to destroy it. They shut down the Forest Service for a few days, and they burned around Giants Playground, but not the playground itself. So we did receive a guide permit for the Helena National Forest, which is Kaiser Dolmen, Eagle Mountain Amphitheater, many sites. But we'd like to take people to Giants Playground, which is the primary site. And so we're watching very carefully. We're hoping that the one major reason that I'm going on this show is to notify the world. And so if the world stands up and says, no, you can't destroy these sites, perhaps the Rio Tinto mines will listen.
That's a good point. Julie, we have energy grid lines on this planet. They call them ley lines. Are these megaliths located near any of these ley lines?
You'll see a map on my website that was made by a cartographer in the Netherlands that shows that if you draw a line from Angkor Wat across the top of the world to Nazca, Peru, that comes right through the Montana megaliths and right through an area by the Yucatan, which is the La Venta, which is where the Olmec helmet heads are, and then touches down in Nazca. If you go the other direction, around the world horizontally, you hit Easter Island, Machu Picchu, Angkor Wat, Giza, Petra, multiple sites are on this 62-mile wide, which is 100 kilometers grid line that basically cuts the world into quarters. We're also on the Becker-Higgins map, beautiful map done in 1987, I believe, where she draws out the major energy points. We're on the 17 to 8 ley line, which connects major energy points on that particular map. And so we know we're on a major grid line. We're also on the headwaters of a major river, and there's also huge amounts of gold here, even still. And so those are the criteria for many of the megalithic sites. They built over gold mines, headwaters of rivers, pink granite. They're built out of cyclopean blocks. In fact, the rocks in Gona Shoria look almost identical. When I put up pictures, people can't tell me if this is Australia, Montana, Russia, South Africa. They all look exactly the same because I believe they were built by the same architects.
Julie, tell us about the Global Pyramid Conference you're going to in Chicago in a few weeks.
Oh, I'm excited. I'll be speaking at the Global Pyramid Conference north of Chicago. It's going to be held in a gold pyramid building.
Cool.
Dr. Sam Osmanovich will be there. Chris Dunn will be there. This is the first major conference where I'll do a presentation about the Montana megaliths. It's time to come out. I've been doing this 11 years. I have pretty well avoided most mass media, but I'm hoping this will save Giants Playground, will save the Montana megaliths from destruction. I'm taking this knowledge out to the world, and thank you, George Norrie, for listening to me.
God, it would be a tragedy, Julie, if they did anything to those structures, wouldn't it?
Well, it would be, because there's so much knowledge there. In fact, we have extremely unique construction. The Kaiser Dolmen, Andrew Barker says there's nothing like this anywhere else in the world. We have what I call the Starfire duolith, and it's a huge blocks that can't tip over during an earthquake because they're set into a cradle. They're perfectly smooth and round, set into a cradle. So when the earth shakes, they simply rock and settle back down into the cradle. Extraordinary construction that has lasted at least 72,000 years. If we can learn and replicate some of this technology, we would not have as much earthquake destruction. Obviously, they had an energy system that was like free energy. Mm-hmm. If we could learn from our past, the true past.
It would be remarkable. Julie, we're going to take a short break, but we're going to come back and take calls with you in just a moment, right here on Coast to Coast AM.